Hey, Gina, how you doing?
Good. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this live of Inspired Learning. I'm Dr. Gina Marcello, and this live, the next couple, are with interviews with producers, people who are working in the industry that have really taken a variety of different paths. And today I'm honored to have with me Tom Izzo. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Gina. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I'm so excited. So this is part of a class I'm teaching at Rutgers University. It's the master's program of communication and media, and this is part of my digital production class. And I thought if we were in regular times, you might be able to come into class and speak to them. But today what we're going to do is I'm going to interview Tom, and he's going to talk about his journey really from not working in the industry to becoming the very first digital content producer at WFAN. Tom, so what was that journey like? How did you end up at FAN?
Well, I always had an interest in radio. It started working in the fish market in the Bronx. I guess you could say I dropped out of college, and I worked in the fish market in the Bronx, and we'd listen to Boomer and Carton every day. In the beginning, I wasn't a huge fan, but it grew on me, and then I became addicted to the medium, the mix of the comedy and the sports. And I always thought it was cool. Like I grew up listening to Howard Stern and shows like that. All these different things that would do audio production and mix it with the show. And I always thought that was really cool. Like instead of people requesting songs, you'd hear callers call up and request these bits. Like, oh, can you play that funny clip that you guys made or whatever? So I always thought like I could do that. One day I'll give it a shot. I could do it. And then, I switched jobs and I started working in Piscataway, which was right next to the Rutgers campus. So I started showing up every day at 90.3 The Core, which is the student-run radio station on the Piscataway campus. So I would go from my job there every day. I would either go in and do shows in the morning and volunteer there, and then go to work and then come back and then do night shows.
So you for free. You volunteered on the radio station because you wanted the on-air time. Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to see what I got, see if I could do it, and I wanted to make the audio bits and have somewhere to put them where there might be an audience that'd be listening. So I was just doing that, and I kept listening to the fan and Boomer and Carton, and then I just started sending them stuff that I would make to see if they liked it, and eventually it caught on. And
what do you mean stuff that you would make?
So I would do.
I know what it is, but explain what exactly you would do.
Right. I would do song parodies about things happening on the show. So if there was a topic that week, if one of the guys, got a ticket or made a 911 phone call or something happened, I would then parody that, whether it was using audio from the actual situation on the show and mix it and like switch it around and take it out of context and make it funny, or I would make song parodies just mocking whatever that they were doing. And usually it was directed at someone. So the whole show would get behind it and focus on that one person that's the target of this and just have fun.
You just randomly started sending audio clips that you edited into Boomer and Carton.
Yeah. Well, what I did was I have a friend who worked at WFAN. He works in the traffic department in the scheduling commercials. So I took his email and I just started guessing what their emails would be on the show. And eventually I got through to Al Dukes, and he replied and responded, "Hey, this is pretty funny." They were at the Super Bowl at the time, and Boomer kept talking about hockey. And on the Boomer and Carton show, if you're not familiar, is a sports talk show. Boomer's a big hockey fan, and his partner Craig was not a big hockey fan. And they're at the Super Bowl, like the biggest sporting event of the year, and Boomer keeps trying to talk about hockey. And a shtick that they had was always like quieting Boomer down when he would talk about hockey, and they would play sound effects over him and just try to drown him out. So I emailed Al and I made some song parodies that were later dubbed anti-hockey songs. And it was just like, don't talk about hockey. And I parodied Justin Bieber. It's not too late to say sorry. And it was nobody cares about hockey. So I
love those. They are so fun, Tom. They're the greatest.
Thank you.
Was that the first clip that was played on the air for you at FAN?
That was my first one that got on the air, yeah. Craig convinced Boomer it was actually Justin Bieber, and Boomer thought he probably listens to the show. And then they started playing it and playing it and playing it, and then they enjoyed it, and they said they wanted more. So I kept making more, and I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks.
And
I would go to 90.3 The Core at Rutgers. Then I'd go to work. Then I'd go to 90.3 Rutgers again and do shows at night. Then I'd go home and just make anti-hockey songs all night.
well, it's funny because I remember you talking about going into your basement and your wife would say to you, "What are you doing? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're down there and you're editing audio."
Right. That's exactly every night. It was like, and like there's people upstairs from us as well. And they were like, "What are you doing?" Like I bumped into the neighbor outside. He's like, "What is happening?" He's like, "None of my business." But like, what's happening at 2, 3 a.m.? I'm singing. Yeah. I'm singing parody songs.
So it was your voice dubbed in with also them talking, and then you'd have another track with music underneath.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the day when you were in your car and you heard your parody on the air, what did that feel like?
That was unbelievable. I was getting ready for work. And then it was a thing that lasted throughout the day. So for me, it was unbelievable. I'm like ironing my pants to get ready to go work in the warehouse that I worked in Jersey. And they just like, Justin Bieber sent a clip in. And it's like, oh, and I was like, really? Like, are they serious? This is going to happen right now? And they played it. And it was just, I'm like, I got to get to work, but I couldn't, I was like overjoyed. I couldn't believe it. And then on the ride in, it continued. And then people at work, like I was talking to people at work about it. It was surreal. And that was my little taste. And then I couldn't stop.
And that's really, I think, how you ended up now being the very first person to be hired at FAN as a digital content producer, which is really why I wanted to have you on. A lot of times when I'm teaching, students are interested in working in the industry, but they don't really know how to take what they're doing and then get into the industry. And sometimes it's not anything that you can really learn in a class. It has to come from other people that are in the industry that have done it and listening to what their paths were. So you have such an amazing and incredible path, and you really are such an inspiration when it comes to especially audio content. So let's just talk a little bit about what do you do right now? Like, what are your responsibilities as a digital content producer, and when did you start? So how long have you been at FAN now?
Oh, I started this job. Okay, I'll give you a quick. I'll do it as fast as I can. I actually started at FAN in that same traffic department. I knew a guy in there, so I kept applying while I was working at the other job and sending bits to the Boomerangio show. And eventually, I went on 3 interviews, and eventually, after getting rejected 3 times, they just called me and they're like, "Listen, the 3 people we hired, they're all gone already. So we're going to offer you the job." And absolutely, I'll definitely take that job. So
how much it paid?
It started at they told me 28,000, and then when I took the job, it was like, "Oh, we bumped up to 32 because people keep leaving, so we want to incentivize people to stay." So 32,000, right. And I took a pay cut from my other job to go do it.
Because you really wanted to do this, and you wanted to do it at WFAN. And I think that's a really important part of your story. And in fact, the other 3 people that I'm interviewing, that is also part of their story. And it's very hard to get that across to students, that if this is something that you really want and you're passionate about, you have to be willing to come in at a lower level to gain the experience and develop the network and the connections. So you were hired into traffic, but how did traffic end up now at digital content producing? What happened in between?
So I worked in traffic for 2 years, and during that 2 years, I kept sending stuff to Boomer and Craig, and I started doing stuff just around the station on social media. I started editing photos. I started learning more and more. Like, now that I have more space that I could like kind of walk into, I became friendly with people at the station. I started I wouldn't say covering the shows, but when events would happen at the station, like a big hire or like inside news would happen, I would be near it. And I document as best I can without crossing lines or stepping on too many toes.
With your video, with your phone, right?
Yeah, I would use, I use my cell phone. I had a cell phone, and I bought a $60 program on the computer because I figured the audio's fine, doing that stuff, but I have to get it on Twitter. How do I get it on Twitter? It has to be a video. It has to be some kind of consumable thing that people can eat up on Twitter without having to do too much work to go find it. Yeah. So I figured out video. Video is the best way to convert that into it'll just play on people's feeds, and the show might share it. And that's what started happening. The show, I would make videos. I went to the Boomer and Carton 10-year anniversary was my big That was the big thing that caught a lot of attention. So I went to the 10-year anniversary. I just went with my wife, came with me,
You
and
weren't to be there. No one asked you to go. You just
right,
were going to go, and you were going
right.
to start interviewing people with your cell phone and a really nice microphone that had WFAN on it. I remember, Tom.
Well, right. Well, I became friendly with the promotions guy. So he gave me, and if you see that mic flag that I use, so I have this microphone that was a prop microphone. It was not a real microphone. It wasn't plugged into anything. It was just to hold up to people to look like we're interviewing them. And the mic flag on it was the old mic flag before WFAN eventually purchased an FM signal, and the station numbers on the dial changed from just 660 to 660 AM and 1019 FM. So that mic flag is just when it was 660 AM. So that mic flag's like 15 years old now. So I had that, and I was like, oh, it's official enough. People will talk to me. So I brought a selfie stick, and I went down on the red carpet at the event. And I just talked to a bunch of fans, and I asked them, like, who's your favorite person on the show? I just questions about the show that I would think were cool questions to ask because I was such a big fan. And then I went home that night. I did not sleep. I went home, and I edited that video on a $60 program that I bought the day before called Filmora. That's how I learned to edit video. That night I smushed together a video, I put it out, and then some salespeople at Fans saw it like 2 months later, and they showed their clients that sponsored the event, and like my client loved it. We didn't have an official recap. They were so happy. And then eventually they, like, Mark, the boss of WFAN was Mark Chernoff. He got wind that I was doing this from the FM station in traffic, thinking, like, why is this kid in the commercial department making videos, and that people are actually sharing it with clients. So we ended up having a meeting, and I didn't know if that meeting was going to be good or bad, and it ended up being great. And Mark said, you know what, they really like what you're doing. The sales staff is really behind it. They love the idea of having a person that does this full time, and it became a job. And in a few months I transitioned from traffic. And it's funny too, they just plucked me one day. The traffic department didn't know what was happening. Like, you just took our guy and he's just going to do videos now. And all of a sudden, the same salespeople I would deal with in scheduling commercials, I was now dealing with in the video department.
It's such an unbelievable story, because you don't think that can happen. But I want to tell the students that happens all the time, right? This is what happens in the business, right? You have the initiative, you get out there, you start creating content, you make good content, you're creative, you're dedicated. And the next thing you know, with a little bit of time and a little bit of luck, now here you are having the very first position at WFAN. And for those of you that are watching that are not familiar with WFAN, it is the #1 talk show station, sports talk station in New York City. And New York City is the #1 media market in the country. So this is if you're not familiar with sports talk, you might not really know the station, but it is a really big station for sports talk fans, especially in the New York, New Jersey area. So the work that you create, Tom, is really used on the social media channels, right?
Yeah, that's how that was the main function of it. We decided we'd put out video from the shows, like just normal sports talk stuff, and then we'd take whatever, like, funny stuff that pops, that, like, if something that cracks up the whole room or something a little off the beaten path. It's not, we don't always do sports, which is my favorite. If we can, the more we get away from the sports and into just general interesting conversation, if it's funny, it's really good, then that's my forte. That's my favorite thing to work with.
So sort of I guess you would say guy talk.
Yeah, I guess. But it's really just common, like, oh, a funny story. I went to this store and this funny transaction happened, and a punchline, and then bam, there's your video. So
what type of content are you creating now?
It's mostly targeted for Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. But during this pandemic situation, so before the pandemic, it was mostly behind the scenes and what's going on in the hallways of WFAN mixed with what's going on the air. So you get kind of both of those worlds. Mm-hmm. Since coronavirus has happened, it's mostly just been audio turned into video. And if we can get video, we do. Like, our morning show also happens to be simulcast on television. So we work hand in hand with the TV people over there at CBS Sports Network to get video from them, so we can post live video, not live video, but live action video of the guys talking.
So you'll get the video from television, and you take the audio also from TV, or where do you get the audio from?
In this case, nowadays they are giving me just the full videos in MP4, so it's
Okay.
video and audio together, and
Mhm.
then I just chop up what I want and what I need, and I'll cut out whatever's. I try to make it very fast and informative.
And how long? So they're really promo clips. You're doing a lot of promotional clips for the
Yes,
show that are shared on the Facebook page for WFAN, on the show page for Boomerangio. But you're also doing editing work for the other shows as well. What are some of the other shows that you work on?
I work on Joe and Evan is the afternoon show, so
Mhm.
that's full audio. They don't have cameras. They're still at their home studios right now, so they're doing their shows from home. So I have to go into the WFAN feed. We call it the logger. That's like the lingo. You go into the logger and we'll grab the sound from the show. Once, like, I'm listening all day, when I hear something happen, oh, they just had Aaron Boone on and he told us Aaron Judge is going to be out for 2 more weeks. So we have a little Slack channel. We all use Slack now. And we're all just, oh, we got to get this Aaron Boone audio. Okay, I'm on it. Don't worry about it. I'll grab the audio. And then we use a few different programs to turn that audio into like an interesting visual, so we can throw it on Twitter and it can be consumed as quickly as possible.
So sometimes you use a graphic or a picture, or other times you actually create little shorts. So I wanted to do a lot of the promo stuff, a lot of the promo audio videos. So if anyone is interested, you can go to Tom Izzo's Twitter page, which is Tom Izzo WFAN, not be confused with the other Tom Izzo. And you'll see a lot of his work there. And I really suggest, if you have not seen it, to please go there and check it out, especially when we're done. One of the other things that Tom creates that I love are those little short animations. Can you talk about the animations, where the ideas come from, and how long it takes you to produce something like that?
Okay. Well, the most recent animation we did is actually if you go to the Twitter account, it's my pinned tweet right now. And it's a story that Greg Giannotti is the host of the morning show Boomerangio. And he told a story about how he took his family on a vacation, and he's a big boat guy. So he took his whole family on his boat, and he had a mishap. There was a storm overnight that wasn't predicted by the weatherman. And it's a whole bit because the weatherman was actually on the show that Friday before the weekend to tell you, hey, it's going to be great weather. Enjoy yourself. So then he did. And then the storm happened and his boat got like whisked away and took a beating in wherever he was in the water. And he ended up having to have his boat like fully repaired. And it was a whole thing to do. So he told a big story about it, a very passionate, very sad story to hear for him tell, because he explains the boat as a family member. So I decided to just animate that and soften the blow as much as possible. When he says, oh, I went with my friend and we go track the boat down, I don't know who his friend is. The audience doesn't know who his friend is. So I decided, in the video world, I took that audio and I turned his friend into a teddy bear. So now wherever he goes with his friend is just a teddy bear. And there's no reason why it's a teddy bear, but that's been the thing that people have jumped on the most, that they've commented on. But I'll take the audio from the show. I will edit the audio into a 2 to 3 minute piece, so it's not too long. And then I'll do my best to animate all the individual pieces. And then I use Premiere Pro, and I try to just make it like he's telling the story for my cartoon, rather than my cartoon being based on his story. And it takes about, I don't know, a long time. This 3-minute video, I would say upwards of 6.5, 7 hours.
So to make a 3-minute video, and I wish we were able to stream it. We tried, however, the audio wasn't coming through. But that video, how long was that? 4 minutes, the video?
Yeah, 4 minutes and 5 seconds. So that was probably an 8-hour ordeal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are not involved on the creative end of it, or on the production end of the editing. They really don't understand how long it takes to produce really high quality content. And the thing that I really like about your animations, Tom, is they're so funny because there's so much subtext to them. You have these, images of people that I don't know if it was that one, but Eddie had like suntan lotion all over his face, and
Right.
Evan outside playing basketball at his house, and if you don't know the shows or listen, it doesn't, resonate the same way. But if you are a big fan of the show, it really resonates with the fans.
Yeah,
want to say.
the idea for that is I want to make a silly cartoon that anyone can just pop it in and enjoy, like watch it and enjoy it. It'll be like my wife will watch it. She doesn't know who the background characters are at WFAN, but if you do know who they are, there's a little extra for you. Like it's a bonus for you who's put in so much time, and now on the background on the wall in a photo frame, instead of it being like a flower, or I'm gonna put something that's an Easter egg. I'm gonna put,
Right.
oh, that's from the time they went to the beach and Eddie got sunburn on his face.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's just so many. I try to put little things in the backgrounds.
That's what's the genius of it, right? And to me, that is what makes it so creative and why you're so good at what you do, because you are such a fan of the show. You love the content, you love listening, you love sports. And so the subtext is also there. Justin is one of my students that he saw it, he loved it, and it's something he wants to get more into because it's great for reusing content. And then Al is joining us. He says, do your bosses know how long it takes, Tom?
Well, lucky for me and my bosses, I don't sleep. So that's another advantage I have is I don't sleep. I do this usually. My work day stops at like 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
That's when this kind of work starts. The stuff that's so my bosses expect videos of the morning show, the afternoon show, the midday show, put out the sports content, funny clips that happen, put out the normal stuff. But the extra bonus stuff that like is a big production, like the boat story, that was 8.5 hours over that I did over 3 days. I'm done with work. It's 2 a.m. Why not? So I'll just hop on the computer. I'll make a bucket of coffee and I'll just lay it all out.
Well, I was really impressed because that particular clip had almost 50,000 views just on your Twitter page, not to mention the other social platforms. So obviously you're doing something right. The fans like it. It's funny. And it really speaks to your work ethic. So I want to ask you now, what do you most like about your job?
I like the freedom. That's one of my favorite things. I have to do the daily clips from the shows, which I do enjoy as well. But then things like the boat story, I get to go do on my own. I get to collaborate with talent. Like we did an animated short for we do one for the holidays every year, and I will collaborate with the talent on that. Like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's almost it's like a bunch of individual writers' rooms. So I'll meet with each talent individually on our station. And hey, what do you think about? I have your character. This is the base storyline. What do you think we could insert here, here, and here? And that is like my favorite thing to do every year is the Christmas special or the Thanksgiving special.
And how long does that take you to put together?
It's about the same. I mean, aside from the having meetings with everyone, like not counting that.
The whole. So
okay.
I think it's important for people to also recognize that as the digital content producer, you have to work with the talent, and the talent needs to like you and trust you. Would you say that that's a correct statement?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think at this point, I mean, everyone was really cool with me since the beginning. They're very trusting, they've been great. And now I've proven it just the past 3 years. Nothing has leaked out or, if we record something, you can trust that I will take just what we need and the rest of it is gone or I won't make you look bad. I have these like 3 unofficial rules. You have to be interesting, funny, or I want you to be interesting, funny, and good looking in the video. So I'm going to make you look as good as possible. So if you're like, I don't know, if we do a picks parlay video, perhaps, and the subject is a little pale looking, could use a tan, I'll go ahead and raise the temperature on that and make the subject glow a little bit. Or
Right.
If someone's looking a little, I don't know, misshapen, I'll stretch them a little bit, make them a little taller, make them a little thinner. You know what I mean? I always want to. I've given people haircuts in photos that we've done.
Oh,
so I always want to. You can trust that I will make you look as good as I possibly can, and I will only use things that make you look interesting or funny. We're not out there to make anyone look silly.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Let me ask you this now. What is the most challenging part of your job? And I want to come to when you first were hired, I thought I heard stories about the fact your computer was not fast enough in order to render what you were working on. Is that right?
Right. Now, when you teach yourself how to do the things that I try to teach myself to do, audio editing, video editing, you also have to learn what is required from your machine to do these things. Not just any computer can do that. And I learned that when I went from Traffic. Here's how the promotion went. They said, now you're the video guy. Have fun. And I said, okay, where's my camera? Like, well, we don't have a camera for you. So it was my phone. How much can my phone handle? Then it was, okay, do I have a new computer? Because, video editing, you'd think I probably need a computer, whatever that'll entail.
Right.
They said, well, you have a computer, right? You were in Traffic. Obviously, you had a computer. You were scheduling commercials. So I used the same computer from scheduling commercials, which was a basic,
have a graphics card that doesn't have
nothing.
It has no RAM. You're trying to, edit, and it's like this.
Right.
Or it's taking 4 hours for it to export 5 hours.
Oh my goodness, it would take all day. And then and not only that, it would crash and go, this is too much for me. The computer would go, I'm tapping out. It's overheating. Can't do this. And I would get tied up.
And so many people don't understand that. Even people that are colleagues that don't understand, you can't use that graphics card. It's going to take so long for you to edit that. So it's
very important
lesson. And I think a lot of students are surprised if they end up working at a small or medium-sized business and they're asked to do any kind of digital content creation. They really are stuck. And a lot of the businesses don't know that there is that initial investment of the equipment. And it does cost money to get a nice computer and to be able to have a decent camera. Do you have a camera now, Tom?
Yes. So over time,
to get a camera.
Over time, we ran into these issues over and over again, whether it was filming a big production and then having to edit it. And I mean, it's not on them really, we learned together. I didn't understand what went into the mechanics of all this until I had to do it. So as I learned, I would go to them, go, listen, I need a couple more things. And then they trusted that I needed it. And I turned it around quickly. And then all of a sudden now everything's much faster and much smoother. And I have a good understanding of what's required from my machine.
So let me ask you this question, or you already mentioned it, but let's talk about this. You taught yourself how to edit audio.
Right.
So what software program did you use?
So I originally started with Audacity because it's a free program. You can pick it up. You just Google it.
For my students, if they're new to audio editing.
That's a very good free one.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you all the basics. It's nothing too flashy. You're not going to, just to learn basic stuff, that's perfect. If you can get your hands on a Mac, if you happen to have a MacBook or a Mac computer, you can get GarageBand. That's built into that
another good
software.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's what I used to really go to the next level was GarageBand. That's when I started doing song parodies and getting attention from Boomer and Carton, Howard Stern. They started playing my stuff.
Howard Stern. What happened with Howard Stern?
Howard Stern, I was sending at the same time when I was sending Boomer and Carton stuff, I was sending Howard Stern stuff as well because those were my two shows I listened to every single day. And so I would send stuff to them, and eventually the Howard Stern show started playing my song parodies too. So that was really cool. And then Boomer and Carton started playing it, and Boomer and Carton there was much more.
Somebody hire me now.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt.
That's awesome. All right. What advice would you, before we take questions for those that are watching, so if anyone has any questions for Tom, please feel free to write them in the page. If you're watching on Facebook, on the Facebook page. If you're watching on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. What advice would you give to students that are interested in working in the radio business or in digital content marketing?
Okay. Well, nowadays, I feel like we have more tools than ever before. I wouldn't be able to do all this now from my basement like I did a few years ago.
What do you mean?
Well, it's easy to get these free programs on everyone's got a computer pretty much. That's all you need that. And then from there, it's up to you really to just grind and figure out how to do whatever your idea is. So that's another part of it is have an idea, find a genre or a niche, something that you like. And especially in the digital space, and just hammer away at it and see if you can fill. When it came to Boomer and Carton, I thought it would be funny to make these songs and drown Boomer out with a song, and it clicked and it worked. And you got to find your song parodies. You got to find whatever it is that you think, whatever you're into. Find the thing that you really care about, and then see if you can fill a void that you see needs to be filled.
That's excellent advice. Excellent. I love it. And I have a question here from a student, Lauren Boone. She said, do you have any suggestions for someone who is used to editing for video on Premiere, but because of the pandemic has to switch software to one of the free ones just due to budget and whatnot? So I think Lauren's asking for a free option for video editing to get some experience. What do you think, Tom?
The first one I used, I mean, if you use Premiere, you'll be fine. You'll be able to use anything. The first one I used to edit in the very beginning that got me a lot of attention was Filmora. The company that makes it is called Wondershare. It's a free program. It has a watermark, and you'll have to pay to have that removed, but it's a one-time payment. I think it was like $59.99. And then it's not like a monthly, like I believe Premiere, all the Adobe products are now a monthly fee to use those, and they're very expensive.
I'm surprised. They just raised Adobe. My subscription now is $30 a month.
Okay.
So it started at $19.99. From my perspective, what do you think about some software that you just buy the software outright for the dog?
I mean, if you can do that, that's the way that's how I felt. I used Filmora when I first purchased Filmora. It was to do that Borgata 10-year anniversary video that got the attention from sales. And then I continued using that when I got the job because I had paid for it and it's what I know how to do. And then I eventually transitioned into what they wanted me to use at the company. But they wanted me to use Premiere. So that's what I use now.
Do you edit the audio in Premiere, or do you use Audition and then go back and forth between Premiere Audition, or do you just do it everything in Premiere?
For what I've been doing, it's very basic enough that I can do it in Premiere. Premiere has all the tools just to do simple editing. But if you want to make a very complex audio piece and then bring it into Premiere, you're better off either using GarageBand first, which is I will still use GarageBand, or Adobe Audition, and then bring it on over into Premiere.
We have another question from Justin. When you started doing this, how long did it take for you to realize that this might turn into a job based on the feedback you were getting from the shows you've done too? Justin.
Thank you, Justin. There was 2 instances where people on the show had mentioned, why don't we pay this guy? And that's when I was like, okay, if I can get their backing, I think I could wiggle my way into this world. And it was Jerry Recco, who's the update anchor for the morning show on Boomerangio now.
He does the basketball broadcast for Rutgers.
Right, that's right. He does the basketball for Rutgers. So much Rutgers. Yeah. And I did something where I think I poked at him, or there was something about him, an audio piece. And after it was done, usually like someone's going to make a punchline or a joke about it. And Jerry was the first one to speak. And he goes, imagine how good this guy would be if we paid him. And that's when it hit me like, this is possible. I can do this. And another time, Craig Carton was of Boomer and Carton. They played an audio piece and he came on and said something like this. He's like, and I was in traffic at the time. And he goes, this guy, he's like, if only they knew how talented he was and what we could do if they like pursued this. And then they went on to another topic. But in that moment, I was like, oh, I can't believe he said my name, and that like, this can be real. We could do this. I made him laugh.
What happened? And Justin said, the Jerry fathead still haunts him.
Oh, sure.
That's great. Tom, if anyone has any other questions, we're just going to start wrapping up. Tom, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us, with my students on today's live stream. We're working in very interesting times. All of us are at home. As you may or may not know, Rutgers is entirely remote this semester. So I wanted to provide students the opportunity to really hear from people working in the industry. Maybe it'll inspire them to do something a little bit different. Maybe it'll encourage them to really create. I think you can only learn so much in a classroom. You really have to dig in there. And like you said, Tom, find out what you're passionate about and just grind away at it. That's how you got where you are. It's really, really impressive.
That's it. Just work really hard at the one thing you really want to do. Pick up skills along the way. This is kind of a silly thing. There's a podcast I used to listen to, the Adam Corolla show. I used to listen to all the time, and he said his story is similar in the fact that he just kind of showed up and just. So I always held on to this. He said life is like one big you're packing up for one big camping trip that starts when you're about 30. So until then, keep packing and gathering. He's like, some people a little earlier, some people later, whatever. But about that area, gather all the skills you can and pack for that camping trip, and then you'll be ready to go when you're ready to go.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What a good quote. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'm Dr. Gina Marcello here with Tom Izzo. Tom, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing more of your content. And let's, Tom, I want to just share, I'll put it in the comments. It's right? Tom Izzo, WFAN. So you'll be able to follow him on Twitter. Please feel free to do that.
All right. Thanks so much, Gina. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.